If you're going into the criminal justice system, you're going to want people to see you differently. But do you know how? I can tell you one strategy that absolutely worked for me. It helped me not only get through decades in prison, but it helped me make sure that when I got out of prison, I could build businesses that would generate millions of dollars in revenues and millions of dollars in profits. Do you want me to tell you what that is? It's reading. You've got to develop a strategy of being an intentional reader. And the way you become an intentional reader is you think early about what am I going to read and why. And after you read, you need to follow this path of writing a book report. It's one of the fundamental core concepts of this whole idea of building a profile on prison professors. This strategy worked for me incredibly from the day I was in prison, whether it was solitary confinement during my first year or starting in a high security penitentiary and advancing through multiple prisons. Now, I'm going to tell you why I did it. So in the very beginning, as I've written about in numerous books, I didn't know what was going to happen to me after authorities arrested me on August the 11th, 1987. I knew the charge I faced was called a continuing criminal enterprise, and it exposed me to the potential of serving the rest of my life in prison. But I didn't get an opportunity to talk to a lot of the people who were already incarcerated because I was a kingpin. And so the authorities locked me in solitary confinement. So when I was in solitary confinement, I was really all by myself. The only thing I had were the books that I read. And in the very beginning, it was really the Bible because I didn't know anybody and I didn't even know how to get books. And I hadn't been a good reader before I went to prison. But by reading, I started to develop strength. I started to think about the world that I lived in and what could I do to still build a pathway to success, even if I'm going to be in prison for decades. And it was, in the beginning, it was super important for me to, I think, prove that I didn't belong in prison to my family, the only people that were believing in me at that time. And so I would tell them, oh, I'm reading this book, and this is, how I got the book, and this is why I chose to read the book, and this is what I learned from reading the book. And it really helped my family start to believe maybe I can use this time to grow in some kind of way, because none of us can change the past, but any of us could start sowing seeds for the future. Well, that strategy really carried me all the way through prison. Once I got sentenced, and I got sentenced to 45 years, the system transferred me from a detention center, solitary confinement, to a federal prison. It's called the United States Penitentiary on the East Coast. I was from Seattle, but I had to start my term in a pen on the East Coast. And I didn't know anybody, in that area, in that entire state, but I'm locked in prison. And I remember going to the library and looking for books intentionally to try and help me develop my mental health. And I used to read look at the encyclopedia, starting there, and reading about philosophy or trying to read about people who've gone through struggle or challenge and what pathways did they use to grow stronger. I think it was through that process that I learned about Viktor Frankl, that, a guy who was a psychiatrist, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got taken into one of Hitler's concentration camps. And on his first day, he had to stand there as he watched the Gestapo or, the Hitler army shoot his parents and his wife, who was pregnant with their child. And the only reason they kept him is they thought they could get some work out of him. So he spent 3 years or so in that Holocaust. I think it was in Auschwitz or Buchenwald or one of those prisons. And he always felt that you could create meaning in your life if you were focused on something bigger than yourself. And that gave me a lot of hope. It gave me hope but hope is just a fantasy unless you do something about it. So I knew that at some point I'm going to try and build support, but I'm going to need assets so that people would see me as something other than a coke dealer, which is the reason I was serving my sentence. Book reports became an enormously valuable asset for me. By writing those book reports and describing why I chose to read this book, and starting off, I could just tell you, I chose to read about Viktor Frankl, probably because I read about him in an encyclopedia. And then I found his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And then from that book, I started to carve out my own plan on how I would build meaning in my life. And it led me to another book and then another book. And I'd write, what did you learn from reading this book? Well, I learned that regardless of what challenges we're going through now, we could always start sowing seeds for something better. But we have to do the work. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world, as I learned from another mentor who also dealt with crisis and struggle. But none of this is about me. It's really about you. What are you doing to memorialize all the books that you read? You want to write about how reading these kinds of books are going to relate to your success in the future. When I was in prison, I always visualized myself coming out of prison strong, with my dignity intact, with opportunities to prosper and become successful. Not in the mediocre ways that society says for somebody coming out of prison. They would describe somebody as being successful if they just didn't go back to prison, right? Or if they just got a job at, Home Depot and wow, he's this week he's working on the fertilizer section, but next week he's moving up to plants. This whole pathway of mediocrity and lower expectations is horrific. Michelangelo spoke about this 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago during the Renaissance, when he said that the danger of setting goals is not that we set goals that are too high and we never reach them. It's that we set goals that are too low, and then once we hit them, we kind of stop. And that's basically what the prison system says. Just be a model inmate. Just don't get any disciplinary infractions. Just, do this. But none of that is going to get you ready for prime time. Society is not friendly to those people like me who have a federal prison registration number. I always considered myself to be unemployable. I didn't believe that anybody would ever hire me for a meaningful career position. Believed that I would always have to develop my own pathway to success. I had to define success. And for me, that success was not so much measured on the job that I was doing, but more about the impact that I could make. And is there a pathway for me to become financially independent so I get to do what I want to do and not what somebody else is telling me to do? Later today, I told my wife, it's 1 o'clock on a beautiful sunny day here in California, and I told my wife, hey, this is a great day to go to the beach. Let's go. Well, I couldn't do that if I was working for somebody else. I want you to be the CEO of your life so that you can do what you want to do. I don't have to devote my career to improving the outcomes of people in prison, but I want to. I get to play this role because I started planting seeds for that very early in the journey. And what was one of the most important seeds? It was writing book reports. So that's one of the reasons that I would encourage you to use our free resources at Prison Professors. Remember what I tell you. I will never lie to you. I'll never ask you to do anything I didn't do. 2, I will never charge you a penny for anything that's on Prison Professors. That's actually 3. So 1, I'll never lie to you. 2, I'll never ask you to do anything I didn't do. And 3, I'll never charge you a penny for any of the time that I commit to Prison Professors or the resources that we make freely available. You are part of our community by watching this program, and I hope that you will do your part, because my goal will be to advocate for changes that allow you to earn freedom through merit. In order for me to succeed, I need you to memorialize your journey. I need you to avoid getting disciplinary infractions. I need you to focus on personal development and demonstrating why you are the change that you want to see. And if you do that, I could build more relationships with employers to help people who are coming out of prison find jobs or income streams or credit or business opportunities. But none of that happens unless you memorialize all the reasons why you are a great candidate for other people to invest in. So I would encourage you, use our resources at prisonprofessors.org. If you're watching this video inside of a prison, have your family visit prisonprofessors.org and become a member of our community, and they could download information and build your profile. It doesn't cost a penny, but it will have a monumental impact on your prospects for success in the future, just like it did for me. My name is Michael Santos. I am the founder of Prison Professors, and I just want you to know I believe in you. So you be cool.